Prevailing opinion says if Dante had waited another 700 years, there is no doubt his Inferno would have included a 10th circle, dedicated solely to the cruel and unusual aberration that is Zelda II, The Adventure of Link. Surely a game notorious for such brutal difficulty and so little regard for basic humanity belongs frozen deep beneath the icy wings of a weeping three-faced Satan, right? Well, after playing Zelda 2 to see if it was as inhumane as all those shrieking voices said, boy, let me tell you, we got a lot to talk about. Following the release and critical success of The Legend of Zelda and its second quest, my boy Miyamoto was back to his diabolical ways designing the fresh hell that would eventually become Zelda 2. Besides his main man Takashi Tezuka, who was in charge of the game's story and script writing, the development team was completely different. This new team was tasked with achieving Miyamoto's vision to create a fundamentally different experience from its predecessor that focused on the verticality of combat, something only possible from a side-scrolling perspective. In an era where most sequels were radically different from their predecessors, something that with almost 40 years of hindsight we'd call an anomaly, at the time this shift in perspective seemed a natural evolution of Zelda 1's gameplay. Billed as a direct sequel, The Adventure of Link boasts an absolute nightmare continuation of Zelda 1's plot. Finding a strange mark on his hand, Link, now 16, seeks out Impa, who leads him to a door unopenable for time immemorial. The key? The very same mark on Link's hand. Inside lies a sleeping Zelda, a distant ancestor of Zelda 1's Zelda. Impa then relates to Link, The Legend of Zelda, in which Zelda's brother the Prince, seeking the power of the Triforce, had a wizard kill himself to put Zelda to sleep. In his shame, the prince got mopey and put Zelda in the very room we find her now, in the hopes that she would eventually awaken. In remembrance of this moment of psychopathy, the prince then established a tradition of naming every princess Zelda. Concluding her story, and with the mark of the hero of destiny upon his hand, Impa bequeaths 6 crystals and a scroll to Link, tasking him to place these 6 crystals in 6 palaces which will lead to the Triforce and awaken Zelda. Meanwhile, Ganon's minions pillage and plunder Hyrule, intent on murdering Link to resurrect their demonic pig oppressor by sprinkling a pinch of Link's little boy blood onto what is currently a puddle of guts. Quest accepted, I leave the altar of the sleeping princess and take those first side-scrolling steps out into this hellscape. Now this Hyrule is not quite this Hyrule, but this Hyrule, which bears a striking resemblance to this future Hyrule, but also to a more traditional RPG overworld like Dragon Quest, complete with roaming enemies that trigger side-scrolling combat encounters, where skewering Ganon's minions nets points used to upgrade magic, health, and attack. These elements, some of the series' most divisive, perhaps most quickly distinguish Zelda 2 from the original. But to fully understand the depths of Zelda 2's depravity, we must explore even deeper. Following the road gets me to Rauru Town, whose inhabitants offer considerable hints about how to navigate palaces and the overworld. An overworld whose many obstructions funnel me through a dark but relatively tame cave onto a beach and eventually the first palace. In trying to reach its end, I relive the same death 100 times. But eventually I get the thing, do the thing and the thing, have my exploration rewarded with more health and magic, find something I have no idea what it is, and then bang my head against a wall for half an hour before discovering each town has an old wise man who teaches you a spell. That weirdo trinket I found grants me access to this one, and another, and the next chunk of the map. I find out bridges are exercises in torment, and when I reach Saria Town and find a mirror under the table, I get arguably the most useful spell in the game. Finding every other path blocked, I enter the second palace. I get spit roasted by flying heads, swan dive into molten lava, touch something wrong, take a mental health break. Question every decision I've ever made. God damn it! discover a viable strategy, and long for the sweet release of death. But I eventually get the thing, do the thing and the thing, find Bagu, and I'm on to the next chunk of the overworld. I'm feeling good, bobbing and weaving, and oh, this is Death Mountain, a gauntlet through which you endure eternal pain. After the second palace, which seems insane, Zelda II thrusts this medieval torture equivalent right into my lap. It's a maze, a slaughterhouse. Some would find it more fitting as a final challenge than one that comes after completing less than a third of the game. So at this point, mentally broken, I managed to find my way out, get the hammer, more magic, and a quite literal game changer in the downward thrust. The hammer opens up the blocked paths from earlier, a cave to more life, and another cryptic item, which rewards me a new spell in Mido Town, which along with a clue someone gives me about the graveyard takes me to Palace 3. While certain parts of this dungeon make me want to slow roast my eyeballs, I eventually find the thing, do the thing and the thing, and by the time I take the raft across the sea to Hyrule's second landmass, having resurrected countless Ganons after being sliced to pieces thousands of times, slicing to pieces thousands of others, Hyrule reeking with the sludge and slime of the dead and slaughtered, I find myself thinking something I can only describe as pure lunacy. I think I like this game. The gameplay loop comes almost intuitively. You find an item in the palace or the overworld, which unlocks more of that palace or overworld, most often allowing access to an area that has a side quest that once complete gets Link a new spell, which unlocks more of the overworld, where every town has a villager who will restore your health and magic. The magic system is simple but surprisingly rich in player choice. Do you heal now and potentially lose out on magic you'll need later? Do you conserve magic for when you need it but potentially risk death? Combat 2 is rich. Do I avoid enemies and stay alive or fight until I'm bloodied and bruised but rack up the upgrades that tangibly make the game less brutal? The attack upgrade especially. And these choices change with the introduction of the upward and downward thrusts with stat increases, each encounter a calculation weighing life and magic, all of which stands on the shoulders of your skills. From fighting blind to coaxing enemies and finding their patterns, to playing on a knife's edge where the risk is backtracking and the reward is turning a demon to confettied pulp. Unfortunately, I ignore my own intuition and villager hints, hike through this maze, do the thing, fight my way to the end of the fourth palace, and shit! I traverse the beach to Darunia Town and find the upward thrust, end the reflect spell, go back to Naburu Town to get the fire spell, and finally do the thing and the thing, find magic, save a child, and grab a heart by walking on water. In Palace 5, I have traumatic flashbacks to Zelda's second quest, but I eventually get the thing, do the thing and the thing, destroy a river devil with the power of song, find a hidden village by hammering down the forest, find the final magic upgrade, crawl into a fireplace to get a spell, find a skeleton key, get the last spell from an abandoned haunted town, and once again invoking the power of song, find the sixth palace. I fall down holes, fight a mid-boss. Praise Jesus! More holes, more mid-boss, do the thing and the thing, and this is why Zelda 2 has no regard for human life. This dinky little path, full of Lizafos sniping you from rooftops, these unavoidable combat encounters that have you feeling like you're playing in Ocarina's hover boots. These damn eyeballs. Constantly maxing your frustration until you're ready to burst from a hypertensive detonation before landing at the doorstep of the Great Palace, inside which you curse and swear and wish for the coming of a mushroom cloud blast equal to 1,000 suns, all to fall down this hidden shaft to confront this abomination and this manifestation of all your pain and struggle. Get the Triforce, wake up Zelda, letting the curtains drop to hide the big hug from someone who is basically your grandma. Here is where I'd like to grant Zelda 2 a decency it would not grant me. I'd like to be fair. This game is hard, brutally so, but it's meant to be. It was the 80s, all we had was hair metal, crack, rock, and hard video games. If you want to beat it, it is necessary to get good. even if Link's sword is just a bit too short. Starting back at the Central Palace after every game over is genuinely bad design. But you can circumvent this in the current year with save states if that's your choice, but I'd recommend using them sparingly as the difficulty is the experience. Or play Hoverbat's PC remake. Parts of this game are cryptic and sometimes demand combing every tile of the overworld or drawing maps for the interconnected hallways the game calls palaces. Talk to the villagers, look up the manual. Mostly because it contains my favorite picture of Link. Though it is often lambasted as a brutal exercise in futility, Zelda II is a surprisingly fleshed out game that integrates its magic and combat systems in a way that offers a lot of player choice. Its world unfurls and interconnects as Link progresses and grows stronger. What some would describe as a Metroidvania, but it's less Metroid and more, well, Zelda. Beyond the surface level differences, it's hardly a disgrace to the franchise, but more so a prototype, containing the DNA of what would become the next 30 years of the franchise. Its influence is clear in the design of the overworlds in later top-down Zeldas, and Ocarina of Time's combat and sage names in the Super Smash Bros. Music. If you're a fan of the Zelda series, try it. Pass through its infernal gates and grapple with all the pain, misery, and suffering it has to offer. But acknowledge all it does right, the challenge and triumph of obtaining the Triforce of Courage. Because after all, Dante said it best, the path to paradise begins in hell.